The guards escorted Leo through the crystalline corridor with slow, deliberate steps. Every footfall echoed against the towering walls that shimmered like frozen starlight. The air was cold but not harsh, carrying the faint metallic scent of the alien capital. Leo did not resist. His hands were bound behind him with luminous bands that tightened whenever he shifted. He kept his gaze forward. He walked with dignity, even though he knew his time was nearly over. The tribunal of the Calorian Dominion had sentenced him for trespassing into Forbidden's territory while attempting a rescue mission. The Calorians, beings with obsidian skin and luminous patterns across their bodies, considered such intrusion a grave offense. They had deliberated in silence before declaring he would face a ceremonial end at dawn. The sentence was irreversible. The hall whispered with shock when Leo accepted the decision without protest. He had only asked for one thing, a final moment with his companion, his alien wolf daughter. Name was Rava. The guards had looked confused at first, because Calorian culture rarely acknowledged bonds between humans and their fauna. But Rava was not a simple creature. The species was called Varu, wolves by appearance, yet far more complex. Their fur shimmered with faint bioluminescent threads. Their senses extended into frequencies no human or Calorian could perceive. Their loyalty was considered impossible to earn by non-native beings. Yet Leo had saved a wounded Veru pup years earlier during a diplomatic mission. He had raised her, trained her, learned her signals, learned her moods. Their bond grew into something unshakable. On the night before the sentence, the guards agreed to allow a final meeting. They led him into the observation garden, a circular chamber with a high glass dome. Beneath the dome lay living soil imported from the Varu homeworld. The air smelled of cold pine and a hint of electrical ozone. It reminded Leo of the first remote outpost where he and Rava had trained together. He inhaled deeply. He needed that scent. It gave him the strength he feared he had lost. The guards halted near the entrance. The chamber door opened. Rava entered. Her paws barely made a sound. Her luminous fur glowed in shifting shades of blue and silver. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, focused entirely on Leo. The moment she saw him, she lowered her head and rushed toward him with a low hum. The hum was her form of speech, a language of resonant vibrations that expressed emotion in ways beyond words. Leo knelt as much as the restraints allowed. Rava pressed her forehead against his chest. He felt her tremble, not in fear, but in worry, deep instinctive worry that radiated like heat. He leaned forward and placed his face against her neck. He whispered softly. He told her he was sorry. He told her he never meant for any of this to happen. He told her she deserved better. He told her she had been the greatest ally he had ever known. Rava pulled back. Her eyes narrowed. Her ears twitched. Everything about her expression rejected his apology. She let out a sharp, resonant hum that vibrated against the walls. Leo had learned long ago that this sound meant refusal. A refusal to accept the situation. A refusal to accept his fate. He smiled faintly. He stood again. The guards allowed the moment to last a little longer before approaching. One of them spoke with a low, echoing tone. The time was nearly over. Leo gave Rava one final look, a look filled with gratitude and affection. He told her to stay strong. He told her to live. He told her to run free. Rava did not move. The guards escorted Leo out of the garden dot. As the door closed, Rava let out a deep harmonic tone that rattled through the crystal floor. A sound filled with both sorrow and defiance. A sound the guards did not fully understand. They exchanged glances, but dismissed it as an emotional farewell from a bonded creature. They had no idea what was truly coming. The ceremony of execution took place in the grand spire. At dawn, The crystalline city glowed with a rising emerald sun. Colorians gathered in silence across the terraces. The air reverberated with the soft hum of their ritual song. At the center stood the execution platform. Leo was placed on it. His bindings tightened while the High Arbitrator prepared the ceremonial staff that would end his life with a single strike of energy, tuned to match his biological signature. It was quick. It was painless. It was considered honorable. Leo lifted his head and gazed across the crowd. He saw no hatred in their eyes, only duty. Colorians followed law without cruelty. That was why he had accepted the sentence. He did not want conflict between humans and Colorians. He had acted for a rescue. He had crossed forbidden boundaries. He knew they had obligations to uphold. The High Arbitrator approached. Crowd fell silent. Leo closed his eyes. Then the world shifted. A deep harmonic roar split the air, got every Colorian. In the spire froze. The ground trembled. The light above the dome flickered. Rava burst into the spire with a force none thought possible. The guards were thrown aside by an unseen wave of pressure. Her fur blazed with bright silver light. Patterns of energy rippled along her body. She released another roar that made the air vibrate so intensely that the dome overhead shuddered. Leo snapped his eyes open. Rava sprinted across the platform. The arbitrator raised the ceremonial staff, but halted as the air around Rava warped. It felt like gravity itself bent around her. A strange field pulsed from her chest. Colorian warriors reached for their energy lances, but then stumbled back as the pressure of Rava's presence intensified. Leo stared in disbelief. He knew Varu wolves were powerful, but he had never seen anything like this. Something inside Rava had awakened. Something primal. Something ancient. The High Arbitrator stepped forward with steady caution. His luminous patterns shifted to a warning hue. He commanded Rava to stand down. Rava ignored him. She circled Leo, then she stepped in front of him. Her fur flared with protective heat. She lowered her stance and bared her glowing teeth. Energy in the air built until tiny sparks danced above the platform. The arbitrator finally understood. Rava was not simply bonded. She had entered the Varu Ascendant. State. A state reserved for only the rarest of her kind. A state where instinct transformed into amplified power that could overwhelm entire battalions. A state triggered only when protecting a life she considered irreplaceable. The arbitrator lowered his staff. The crowd gasped as Rava raised her head and released a resonant so deep that it vibrated into every chest. The patterns on Colorian bodies glowed in reaction. Their species was sensitive to frequency. Rava was speaking directly to their nervous systems. Her hum carried meaning. It carried emotion. It carried primal declaration. She would not allow Leo to die. The arbitrator exchanged glances with the council members. Their patterns flickered rapidly in silent discussion. The execution halted. The ritual song had ceased. For the first time in decades, a protocol had been interrupted. A creature had challenged their law, not out of aggression, but out of devotion. The arbitrator raised his hand for silence. He approached Leo and Rava slowly. He spoke with calm gravity. He said the Dominion recognized unique bonds. He said their law allowed exceptions in extraordinary circumstances. He said this was one such moment. If a Varu ascended in defense of a human, then that human was no longer considered an intruder, but a guardian of the Varu. A title of ancient significance. The crowd murmured in surprise. The arbitrator continued. Leo would not be executed. His sentence would be overturned. His trespass would be forgiven. His bond with Rava elevated him to protected status under Dominion tradition. The law itself demanded this outcome now that Rava had acted. Leo could barely breathe. Reva stepped forward, and Hanar touched her forehead to his side. The arbitrator lifted his staff. Declared Leo free. The crowd bowed as the resonance of the declaration echoed across the spire. Rava let out a soft hum that trembled with relief. Leo knelt beside her and rested his hand on her luminous fur. He whispered a quiet thank you. She closed her eyes and nuzzled him. The guardians removed his restraints. The bindings dissolved into gentle light. Warm air brushed against his skin for the first time in hours. He stood tall. Rava took her place beside him. The Calorian Council invited him to speak. He stepped onto the platform with Rava at his side. He spoke with calm resolve. He explained his mission. He explained how he had only tried to rescue stranded explorers. He explained why he had crossed Forbidden's land. The council listened. They saw truth in his words. They saw sincerity. More importantly, they saw the unwavering loyalty of the creature at his side. The High Arbitrator spoke again. Leo would be allowed to return to his people. But the Dominion asked something in return. They wished for cooperation. They wished for understanding. They wanted him to act as a bridge between humanity and the Varu species. He accepted. He knew it was the right choice. Rava pressed against him, sensing his steadiness. Over the next weeks, Leo remained within the capital as a guest. Not a prisoner. Not a criminal. A guardian. Spiraling towers shimmered beneath the emerald sun as he walked the city with Rava beside him. Citizens greeted him with gestures of respect. Young Calorians asked about the bond between human and Varu. He answered with patience. He told the story of how he found Reva trapped in a collapsed ravine. He told them how he nursed her back to health, how she had saved him more times than he could count. Rava became a symbol of unity. Leo did not seek attention. He simply lived. He trained with Calorian scouts. He studied their customs. He shared human knowledge. He learned how deeply the Dominion honored balance. He discovered that much of the confusion leading to his arrest had come from a misunderstanding of boundaries. With patience and communication, those misunderstandings evaporated. One morning, the High Arbitrator called for him once more. The Council had reached a new conclusion. They wanted Leo to lead a mission that would include both humans and Calorians. A mission into the same Forbidden's territory where the miscommunication had begun. A mission to map it, to open it, to establish cooperative exploration, to ensure no further accidents occurred. Leo agreed. He stood with Rava at his side as they prepared for departure. The ship gleamed with alloy wings shaped like crescent blades. Calorian scouts boarded with fluid grace. Human specialists arrived through a shimmering portal. Rava inspected each member of the team. Her luminous fur glowed softly. She accepted them. She trusted them. That trust set the tone for the entire expedition. The journey lasted weeks. They traveled through nebula clouds that shimmered with violet dust. They crossed magnetic storms that painted the starfield with silver waves. During the voyage, Leo led the crew with calm discipline. He mediated cultural differences. He encouraged open communication. He relied on Rava to detect unseen dangers. Her senses saved them more than once. They discovered ancient ruins carved into floating stone arches. They mapped pathways that pulsed with dormant energy. They found evidence that prehistoric Varu tribes had once guided travelers through these star paths. The Dominion had feared the region due to unstable energy pockets. Yet with careful analysis and cooperation, the mission proved far safer than expected. Every achievement was documented. Every discovery strengthened the bond between humans and Calorians. And all of it began with Rava. Near the end of the expedition, the ship detected an anomaly. A massive energy structure unlike anything recorded. Leo ordered a cautious approach. Rava stood at the observation deck, fur glowing in a steady rhythm. She sensed something profound. Not danger. Something older. Something connected to her lineage. The structure opened as they neared Dot inside. They found a chamber filled with crystalline murals depicting Varu ancestry. The murals told stories through light and vibration. Stories of ancient Varu guardians who once protected both humans and Colorians in the distant age before recorded history. Stories of sacrifice and unity. Stories of bonds that transcended species. The crew listened in awed silence. Rava stepped to the center of the chamber. The crystals around her lit up. They responded to her presence. They recognized her ascent. They recognized her connection to Leo. The energy in the chamber resonated. The sound swelled. It wrapped around Leo like a warm current. His vision blurred. For a moment, he felt memories that were not his own. Memories of a time when Varu roamed the stars as guardians of peace. When the resonance faded, the chamber dimmed. The murals went still. The crew left with reverence. Upon their return to the Dominion capital, the council honored Leo and Rava for extraordinary contributions. They were granted the emblem of the Twin Paths, a rare symbol bestowed upon those who forged unity between species. During the ceremony, the arbitrator spoke clearly. He reminded everyone that the path to unity had begun with a single request. A request made by a human who faced the possibility of death, yet asked only to see his companion one last time. The crowd murmured in respect. Rava stood beside Leo, her head held high, her eyes reflecting the glow of the spire. Leo placed his hand gently on her neck. He knew she had saved his life, not through aggression, but through devotion. Her loyalty had shifted the course of cultures. Her courage had challenged centuries of law. Together, they had reshaped destiny. The Dominion declared Leo a permanent envoy. Humanity accepted him proudly. Both species worked together to form a new era of cooperation. A new chapter began. A chapter in which fear gave way to understanding. A chapter shaped by the bond between one human and one wolf of the stars, Dot in the years that followed. Songs were written about the day the spire trembled, about the wolf who defied fate, about the human who accepted death with dignity. These songs carried across the galaxy. They inspired listeners to look beyond boundaries, to value loyalty, to trust courage, to honor bonds that crossed every difference. Leo never sought the fame. Rava never cared for attention. They continued living as they always had, walking side by side, guarding one another, exploring distant horizons, teaching new generations that unity was worth every effort. Whenever Leo looked at Rava, he remembered the moment she stepped into the spire, the moment she refused to let him fall, the moment her roar changed everything. Dot, and every time he whispered the same words, Dot, thank you. Rava, she hummed softly in return, a promise, a bond unbroken, a story shared between human and wolf, carried through the stars for ages to come.